Welcome back to I'm Just Game, Season 2, baby.
where we serve real talk, queer joy, and all the tea in between.
This season, we're celebrating life, love, and everything fabulously in between.
Because this podcast, it's more than just a conversation.
It's a love letter to all of us. Let's get into it, baby.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to I Am Just Game podcast. As you all know, this season is a love letter to all of us, and we are beyond excited to have a very special guest with us today who embodies this to the T. She is a true legend. Her music has been the soundtrack to freedom and love for decades. The one and only Ultra Naté. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Yes, and thank you for accepting the invite. We truly do appreciate it. Before we dive into this episode, one of the things, as we said, this season is a love letter to us all. And so I'm going to read today's love letter, which is as such. Dear Ultra Naté, this season of I Am Just Gain is a love letter to all of us. And today, it is a love letter to you. For more than 3 decades, your voice and vision has given our community a soundtrack for freedom, joy, and unapologetic love. With every beat and every lyric, you've created space for us to move, to breathe, to heal, and to live out loud. Songs like Free are not just music, they are declarations of belonging, anthems that remind us we are worthy of taking up space exactly as we are. We welcome you into our podcast family with gratitude and admiration. Thank you for holding the door open for us, for building a world where liberation and love are not just ideals, but lived experiences on the dance floor and beyond. And as we celebrate you, we also honor the incredible legacy of Deep Sugar. Congratulations on 22 years of curating a home for music lovers around the globe. Deep Sugar isn't just a party, it's a movement, a sanctuary, and a reminder that community is the sweetest thing of all. Ultra Naté, this love letter is simple. Thank you. Thank you for being a guide, a creator, a beacon of freedom. Thank you for reminding us that love for ourselves, for one another, for the world is the rhythm that keeps us going. With joy, respect, and love, your friends at I Am Just Game podcast.
Oh, we coming out the gate with tears. Oh my God, don't make me cry. Come on, guys. Excuse me. Wow. That was beautiful and so appreciated. You know, I put a lot of heart and soul and time and energy and focus into, you know, my music thing, but also the Deep Sugar Party. And, you know, it's a labor of love over the years, but it's been so gratifying to make this sense of connection with so many different people and to build that community and know what it means to other people, because that was the spirit with which it was created, was for the continuation of that kind of energy and that kind of safe space for us all. That, you know, ushered me into the music business. That was really organically how I ended up in the music business anyway, because it wasn't by design. It was really because I was in that space with this community, and it all kind of evolved out. And I felt it was incumbent upon me to continue that journey, continue that story, and opportunity for everyone else out there to find that beauty that we've all found.
Amazing. It was, your songs are just you touch so many people in so many ways. I mean, me coming out of the closet, that song Free, oh, girl. Girl. I'll be in that dance floor, being not out of the closet, thinking, that's what I need. And the shackles that I had with family and religion.
Oh my gosh, I'm
was
sure.
shackling me
Yeah.
so much, and that song really, I mean, it does free you. It does, and it freed me little by little. So
Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, Free came at a very specific point in my life and in my career. I had already done 2 albums previously for Warner Brothers, so I was just out of the major label system. And again, I was kind of like a new artist. I kind of stumbled into the idea of being an artist, of being a singer and a songwriter. And I learned trial by fire. I learned while I was doing it as a professional. So everything I was offering to the world in those first two albums before Free came into being were all really experimental things conceptually, and just kind of learning over the years how to do it with intention. So by the time Free came along, it was a different skill set that I had and a different intention of what we wanted the outcome to be. And everyone that was in that process of creating Free, because it really was a collective effort between myself, my manager, my producers, Lemon John, and even our engineer, my vocal producer, Danny Madden, my A team of background singers. Like, everybody really came to the table to create that work and make it something beautiful and special, to build upon the career that I had already started to create and had started to make a name for myself, mostly in the UK and across Europe, and somewhat in the US, mainly in underground, but peaking here and there in the mainstream. Has been a very interesting journey in the US. But Free was like that culmination moment for me as well, where all of these threads all came together and made it all make sense, you know?
That's so amazing.
No, that is amazing. And, one of the things I take from that is the intention. And, that's kind of like with us in this podcast. And when we started on this journey, so Hernando had been doing this podcast for 4 or 5 years before you brought me in. And then when we aligned with the intention, things like this happen.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just amazing how intention can take you so far. Before we dive a little deeper, let's just step back a bit. Who is Ultra Naté?
Yes, I want to know. I want to know.
Well, usually with that question comes, the name, like, what's my real name? And it is my real name in actuality. So I've been Ultra from birth, Ultra Naté, first and middle name. And it was really all my mother's doing. I can take absolutely no credit of making anything up. It is absolutely on my birth certificate. So I had to navigate that as a kid. But I've always been a very curious kind of person that was very Pisces Aries. So I've always been like on the creative bubble, but having that, kind of impulsivity, that explosive kind of energy to explore whatever crazy harebrained scheme I could come up with. And there have been many along the way. It continues to be many. Ask any of my friends. So,
Are you a Pisces? Are you a Pisces?
Yeah, I'm on the cusp of Pisces Aries, like dead
March
center
10,
in the middle.
I'm a Pisces. March 10 Pisces.
Oh, that's beautiful for men. Yeah. But I feel like that Aries fire gave me the ability to like not be afraid of those dreams, which I think, holds a lot of people back.
Yeah.
I never felt like I really had anything to lose with trying out some things. I kind of just had this like buoyant optimism about it, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? You know what I mean?
That's an optimism.
And so that was, you know what I mean? Like, well, try it. What's the worst thing that can happen? Is it doesn't work out, I move on. I wasted a little time, a little bit of energy, but I'll learn something from it or try it again. So I've never been afraid to try it again. So I've always been that kid, like exploring this, exploring that, kind of having my own really fortified sense of self. Even when I felt insecure about things, I tried to not let the fear of the unknown hold me back. And I would, kind of go out on a limb a lot of times. And those limbs are what led me to where I ended up being as a teenager, planning to go into medicine. And then starting that journey with, from my high school curriculum into my college curriculum. But at the same time, I then discovered club culture. And so that just kind of opened up my whole world to the beautiful impact that music had even further, because I was already well immersed in music. You know, I listened to all of my mother's albums, and it was all like lots of great soul music. It was Shaka Khan, you know, Rufus and Shaka Khan. It was LTD and, you know, Gene Carn, Pointer Sisters, Marvin Gaye, all the ones, you know,
All the
Luther,
greats.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. On the radio, I was listening, but on the radio, then I was, you know, in the opposite end of that, I was doing, you know, a lot of the Brit pop movement, and, you know, some of the more punk kind of stuff. So I was listening to anything from The Clash to U2 to A Flock of Seagulls
Wow.
to Madonna and Cyndi Lauper, or Tears for Fears.
Oh, Tears for Fears.
You know, yeah. So I was kind of all over the place in this really great musical chameleon of what I was listening to, scrolling on the dial, and what I was listening to on vinyl in my household. And so I was having this really great experience learning that I would immerse myself in music, and that's kind of where I got lost with things. So whenever something was troublesome or, you know, just overwhelming, I kind of took a deep dive, as a Pisces would, into my safe space, which was music. When I started college and then suddenly stumbled into Odell's here in Baltimore, I found another part of myself, because that was sound system culture. And that system was built on, you know, Paradise Garage, Richard Long, immersive sound system, Stax, analog, resonance. You know, it was different to then hear, you know, Michael Jackson on that kind of sound system.
Right.
You know, and at the same time, house music had started budding out of Chicago. So I was getting that mix of things and hearing things like Jomanda and 10 City, Chip E, and like a lot of the early house music stuff, Marshall Jefferson. And it was so overwhelming. It was, you know, this really great music, which, you know, in hindsight, I learned over time that this was basically the daughter of disco having its revenge, because disco had been, you know, bastardized here in the U.S. because of racial tensions and capitalism. Let's get into that part too,
Right.
because disco music was making all the money, right? But it came from scenes that were built out of black and brown gay culture, and, you know, and it was making the waves and selling all of the records and making all the money. And so there was a backlash here in the U.S., as always tends to happen whenever any marginalized community gets a leg up in any area or industry. And then house music spawned out of that, because suddenly you had the advent of technology come in, and these new young would-be producers could now create these beats and sounds on 4-tracks in their basement and afford to make this, you know, this kind of, you know, much more condensed kind of disco music. And it kind of created its own lane. And that's what was bubbling under in this underground scene. So it was very new. It was very dirty in its sound, because, you know, everyone was new and young and experimenting. And that's kind of what made it edgy and fun and different. And I ended up being a part of that community. And that's where I found friendships, and I found what then became my producers. So I was moving through all of these things, having this intention of going into music. I was doing, you know, this very specific thing over here on the left, but way wide open in a creative place, and completely enthralled with club culture, because I had to dance. Like, I had to do it. It was church. It was the sanctuary every Sunday. And I literally went from being a church kid every Sunday, you know, singing on my choir or whatever, to being at the disco. You know?
Isn't that the case? Isn't that the story for everybody? We were at church.
It really, you know. Oh my God, those were some hard Sunday mornings once I got to church. Let me tell you. Woo. Trying to stay awake after you just got to bed at like 6, 7 a.m. is like,
Right.
it's rough. But that's where it started. Like that was my thing. When I was in high school, I was very intentional about going into medicine and taking my classes, and I was very nerdy and specific about my academics. But at the same time, like I had a little dance group on the side that I was a part of. And the five of us, you know, it was 3 girls and 2 boys. And we did all the 5-star records, and we did all, you know, all of the DeBarge records. And then we would perform them for our events. You know what I mean? And so I was definitely living in these 2 worlds, in these 2 places. But the creative fun stuff in the dance and house music world, like that was just like my outlet for fun. I never really looked at it as it being a career until the moment that I actually stumbled into it being a career.
Oh, wow.
And it was a stumble, let me tell you.
It's funny because I think we all have like a very, like, I'm talking from a Pisces perspective. We have this, like, I was a director and very regimented, but then on the side, I'm a comedian and I'm a dancer and I'm all these things. So I have this like dual lives. Like, I guess the fish.
Yes.
These lives that, like, they have to exist in my life.
Yeah.
They always.
I feel like it'll find you, you know, the universe finds you. As long as you like keep like opening yourself up to those little, you know, opportunities, those little moments where God speaks to you through whatever medium, whether it be meeting a specific person, whether it's being in a specific place at a specific moment, you know, the universe is going to find you as long as you put yourself out there to, you know, to be a part of it, to be open to getting those signals. And when it happened, I didn't do anything to block it, because a lot of people, you know, either intentionally or unintentionally end up blocking their blessings and blocking opportunities just for fear of the unknown sometimes. But I didn't, you know, I met Tommy Davis first. Well, he was one of the 3 Basement Boys at the time. He worked in the record store, which everyone went to the record store after the parties were over to go buy the vinyl of whatever was played at the club the night before.
That's so cool.
So yeah, so that was a cultural thing where everybody went to the record store after the party, or sometime during the week. You definitely had to hit the store. In that space, Tommy and I became really good friends. He knew that I sang in my church choir, but I think he, you know, when you tell people that you sing in your church choir, they immediately get the impression that you're like Mahalia Jackson. You know, you're screaming all over the church. You're like Shirley Caesar. You riffing down, okay? You're killing it. You know what I mean? And like, that was not what I was doing. Like, I was very much like holding down my alto, second soprano area over
You weren't
here,
going,
carrying the background, and I'm chilling, right? Because in my mind, I wasn't the voice to be the one to be, you know, the screaming diva, Patti LaBelle-esque kind of riffing and all of that. That's what the soprano girls did. You know what I mean? So, you know, us over here with the heavier voices, we carry the body of the choir, you know? So I was like, you know, I'm not a singer like in that kind of way, but, you know, I can sing. I can definitely carry a note and I understand, you know, music and all of that. But I was not trying to be a singer in any real way. But they were so open to like anybody coming to work. And he basically was like, you know, just come down and hang out and like, we'll just see what happens. And they were just opening up their studio to anyone because they were trying to build basically a team of songwriters and artists to start building their production company. And so I went and ended up basically auditioning like 4 or 5 other people who were there that evening. And they just asked me to go into the booth, which was literally, the studio was in the basement and the booth was the bathroom. And yeah, I mean, the microphone was all set up, like they had it all like treated with, you know, these, you know, kind of insulating things or whatever around to convert it. But it was literally the bathroom. And I had to just go sing an a cappella of something. So I did Angela Winbush's Angel because I loved Angela. I still love Angela Winbush and still love that song. And I had never sang it before for anyone. So I don't even have a clue what I sounded like.
Well, it worked. You're here.
Don't know. Can't even tell you. Can't tell you what that thing was doing.
It was amazing.
Because I had never done anything like that for anyone. So, but see, this is where I go back to the point of, you know, when you're young, you don't have the same fear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it could have been complete trash. And it may be complete trash. And I'm sure it's on a DAT tape somewhere in an archive, somewhere that no one can find now. And it could be complete trash. But that wasn't the point. The point was, all right, cool, I'll try it.
That's awesome.
You know what I
But
mean?
that's
And that was
such an
pretty much
adult
my
way of
attitude.
that's such an adult way of thinking at your age, though. Because people
Yeah, I was
get
18,
people
literally.
get a lot of therapy to get there. Like, honestly.
Right. This is very true.
Okay.
But you were like,
Okay.
So you were wise.
girl, I'm telling you, I had a lot of therapy to get there. Trust me, it takes a
Right. You were wise beyond your years
Yeah,
at that
man.
point.
I mean, they could have been like, sis, thank you for coming, but yeah, no.
But the fact that you tried it, you said, let's do it. That's like so an adult way of thinking. So like, propel yourself into that direction. Like, let's just try it. Was that saying?
Let's just try it.
What's the worst that can happen? People don't say that to themselves a lot. They just said, I don't want to try it. That's all they say.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
I mean, I don't even think I was that like conscious of like, okay, well, you know, what's the worst that can happen? I think I just was like, meh, all right, let's do it.
Right.
You know, and then to do Angela Winbush, like I could have definitely selected something easier because that song is really like she got the chops, okay?
Right.
Angela Winbush is like the business. So in hindsight, I'm like, girl, you were tripping. Like, really?
That's that youthful confidence that we all have. When I was 19,
Right.
you couldn't tell me anything. I used to be going to those dances.
That's it.
I'm like, I'm a prima ballerina, and I'm here
Now,
and you can't tell me otherwise.
right. Now, were you in Baltimore at this time?
Yeah, it was all in Baltimore. It was literally like 10 minutes from where I live.
That's amazing. So I wonder how much of like, you know, the Baltimore community and the vibe, like how much that influenced you in your sort of growing up to,
I'm sure
where
it was
you are
huge.
now. And, yeah.
I'm sure it was huge. You know, the moment that I stepped into Odell's, like I had never been in a club environment before, and I immediately gravitated to the stage. That was the place. That was the place to dance.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, of course it is.
You know,
I mean, what other place would there be? That's where I go.
Where else would you?
I've never danced on a dance floor. I'm like, I'm going to those boom boxes over there on top with those people. I'm gonna dance over there.
No, actually,
Right.
speaking of the night that we saw you DJing in DC during Pride, that was May of this year. This one literally was walking towards, like he made his way all the way up. He didn't get on the stage, of course, but he was making his way up there.
See?
They all like this.
You know what it is. You know what it is.
You guys deep in that crowd. I'm like, I am in the crowd, baby. That's where I want to be all the time. I think I locked eyes with you at one point, and I'm like, I don't know if it was true or not, but I was there, and like there was no salsa playing that whole night. But I don't know if you saw me. I was just up there, and then all of a sudden I hear that. I'm like, oh, is that for me? Oh. Is that for
It's
me?
very possible. It's very possible.
Give that to me because I'm giving it right back, baby.
It is very possible. I'm like that one right there. I got something for you. Yeah, that can happen for sure.
So
For sure.
mine.
But yeah, I went straight to the stage. So there you go. Like everything was like, okay, is this what I'm doing? This is what I'm doing. I'm going straight to the stage because that's where it's all happening. And Odell's had this beautiful like runway kind of stage, right? So the stage went out, jutted out into the middle of the dance floor. It was like a runway. And so, you know, the place to be was like right at the front of the runway because then you're central to the club. And I don't think I was even trying to be there to like show off in any kind of way. I think I just felt like I needed to be where the sound was most impactful.
Right.
Yes.
And the energy was where the energy was the thickest, where the frequency and the vibe was like hitting the hardest.
Right. And that's how we describe a lot of experiences, and especially the night when we saw you, is like we were going up to the altar And it's kind of like when you're in the church, especially the Black church, it's like that's where all the movement is in front of the altar. So yeah, there's definitely that connection there.
No.
Yeah.
So I know that you.
So that laid my foundation right there. That was it.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I know you propelled
Love
us,
it.
these beginning, creating these songs and this journey and love and liberation that you've given all of us, which is amazing. I'm like, but I have a question for you. Like right now in your life, if you want to like think of like a soundtrack to your life right now, what do you think it will be? What kind of
Oh gosh. A soundtrack to my life. Wow. Ugh. I don't even know where to go with that one. Jeez. I mean, whew. And if there's someone out there about being on a roller coaster, that is definitely my life because
actually,
well, let me tell
roller
you.
coaster of love, roller coaster of love.
There you go. Always,
Yes.
it's always that in this music industry space. There's always the roller coaster. There's always the you got to be nimble. You got to be nimble out here because the music business is always like shifting sand, and you can't get too stuck or too comfortable. It's a matter of finding the balance between being consistent in who you are and what you represent, while also being nimble enough to flow with things and change direction abruptly sometimes if need be, or to just evolve continually.
Exactly.
It's an interesting, very interesting walk because it's a balance between your creative self and your business self once it becomes a career.
Right.
And those things are always evolving, and the industry itself is always evolving and shifting. And so you've got to continually shift with it. And I think one of the main reasons that I've been able to have a level of consistency with my catalog and my career is because of that nature of always evolving, always being intentional, but still being open to let's try it and see what happens. You know what I mean? So you've got to be that way to a certain degree while still maintaining who you are and what you want to represent. And I think if you can find a sweet spot between those two places, you can rock with this kind of career. But you definitely cannot have a fixed personality where you expect that if I put in X, I'm going to get Y, because it doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Do you feel you're getting
That's
you're in
amazing.
that sweet spot where you have you, Ultra Naté, and then that sweet spot of you being you and still being in the business right now?
Absolutely. I think I'm living a very different and dynamic experience as an artist because I have had the ability to be in the major label system quite a few times, be in the independent system that functioned like a major a few times, and be completely independent myself, still consistently, and do things on my own terms. I've had the ability to make the kind of records that I wanted to make without people dictating what my records should be out the gate. A lot of artists, especially young, new, starting up artists, don't get that opportunity to create whatever they want to create. I've had, complete, carte blanche to write and produce and do whatever stylistically I wanted to do, basically from my Blue Notes album onward.
Oh wow!
And that is a very,
That's
very
rare.
big blessing.
Right.
Yeah, that's a huge blessing right there. And I think that happened because I came out in house music at a moment when the major labels were discovering it and curious about what this new genre of music that was bubbling in these underground scenes was about. They came looking for us at the time. Yeah, they came looking for us in our spaces, as opposed to us having to try to rebrand, repackage, and sell ourselves to a companies that didn't know, understand, or get what we were doing. So we were able to be our authentic selves in what we presented musically, which is a very charmed experience because you don't always get that once you're in the major label system. But and I was also very blessed to have and still have a great group of people around me that fully understand who I am as an artist, that are on my team in a real way. And, that comes down to your A&R people, that comes down to your management, your team, your backbone, because sometimes those things don't always correlate.
Right.
And things can be working against you as an artist. Sometimes people are just caught up in the business aspect and don't understand your creative self. And then that can be disastrous for young artists sometimes. So I was very fortunate, especially in my early beginnings, that I had great management. I had a great set of A&Rs, a great label behind me that really got it with my UK signing in Warner Brothers. And I was being packaged and sold to an audience in the UK that understood and knew and loved underground house as it was being presented to the mainstream culture.
That's awesome.
So that was just, it was the timing also was something you can never replicate.
Exactly.
And that made a huge difference as well.
That is so beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Thank
You've inspired generations of artists. So who inspires you today? And how do you think about your legacy as you continue to grow and build it?
I listen to a lot of different artists, and I'm always inspired by the greats, obviously, because I think that it's very important to, to hone your craft, continually hone your craft, to continually work to get better. So, my icons are still Mother Grace, as always,
Oh my goodness.
So
I saw Grace Jones for the first time during Pride, and I'm still on cloud
this
nine.
year.
Yeah, it was her and Janelle Monáe. Like,
I was there.
oh my god! At the anthem,
I was there.
I am still like blown away.
I was there, World Pride Weekend. Yeah, some of my friends came up from Miami, and we all went.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
And she was epic that night.
Yes,
it was
she was
gorgeous at 77 years old, and that's an amazing inspiration to still see her like just giving it and sounding and looking amazing and being fully in her authentic self and presenting her music in a way without having to have, all of the crazy bells and whistles that, the industry has become now when doing live shows. It's just like dope band, beautiful set design, and just an immaculate performance and presentation.
yes.
End of story,
Yeah.
So people like that continue to inspire me. I love Shaka, obviously, another mother that, whose voice really was impactful for me. Like, because I wasn't trying to be a singer when I was a kid, it wasn't my thing, but I was so immersed in the music of these women and listening to the way that they sang and the way that they would turn a phrase and the way that they would emote. And it all resonated with me. So when you talk about like Stephanie Mills or Regina Bell or Anita Baker and voices like that, like those were all the women that I listened to that taught me about love and taught me about singing without the intention of teaching me. But that was my training ground. So when it came time to actually do it for real when making records, like I just kind of fell on what I listened to. And so these women are still, they're still my icons, I'm still a huge Madonna fan. She's like still the bomb and doing her thing. And, the legacy and impact that these women have had over the years to continue making records and continue just doing what they do because they love it. That's very inspiring for me. Tina Turner was also a very, very huge impact on me because her story was amazing and she was so powerful and in beautiful and talented and just wondrous. And I'm like, if I can just get like a tenth of that,
Right.
I
I
am
think
winning.
I think
Okay.
you have more than a 10. I think you have a lot. You have a
Yes.
lot of that, right? You have more than a
I'll take it. I'll take it. But I'm just shooting for a tenth. If I can just get a tenth, I'm good. Okay.
10.
So, but yeah, but it's like you need to see yourself. Like representation matters.
Yeah,
If you see
you do.
yourself in those icons, but not only women. I mean, there's plenty of men who have been and also still inspire me. You know, I was a big David Bowie fan. The
Mm.
way he would dress and just be, you know, doing his thing, the music. I was a big Boy George fan growing up when I was a kid. I used to go to school dressed like Boy George, and my whole community got no understanding what I was doing.
Who are
But
you?
yeah, yeah. In the inner city in Baltimore, it was
Right.
like,
They're like, who is she?
okay, all right.
Yeah, she's
So everything was
from
spiky
She has her
hair, and
vibe. She has her vibe.
listen, scissors cutting up everything like nothing was safe from my scissors or the magic marker. Let me tell
Oh,
you.
wow.
Yeah. So you just I still look at a lot of those people, and they still give me goosebumps. Like El DeBarge is still sounds flawless,
Yes.
you know, and to hear him still singing, I'm like, that encourages me that we can continue on this journey. We can still do
You
it.
know, we
The new
do-
people that inspire me are like Sia.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
She's newer,
yeah.
and I absolutely love her voice,
Yeah.
and I love that her writing is just insane. And those are people that you listen to, and you have to you learn from as you're a songwriter and a singer, and you learn different things. So it's a process to continue, like always.
I think that's great that
Absolutely.
you like. I think that you also give yourself so much room for growing as an artist. Like you don't block yourself in. You say no, let's expand and
Absolutely.
expand as an artist instead of like. I think as artists, I feel like I'm an artist too. I feel like I can learn from anyone. I go to comedy shows
Yeah.
and I learn from comedians that are just the way they move, the way they do their cadence, the way they say something, like
Mm-hmm.
stop. Like when you're an artist, I think people don't understand. You look at artistry in a technical. You
Mm-hmm.
don't look at it like you love
Yes.
the music,
Yes.
but like I
Yeah.
also
You're like a sponge.
exactly.
It's kind of like being a sponge.
A
You're just
person
open to
moved or
all of it.
sang that way or hit that note in that specific way that was so rare for me to, like to us is rare. People
Mm-hmm.
they overlook it, but for us, I'm like, no, that's something that is to,
Yeah.
you know.
No, definitely, and it keeps it interesting also.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, explore these different rabbit holes, then you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And it can't be inspiring, but for so long. I think I'm a bit spoiled though, because I was able to always make the records that I wanted to make.
Mhm.
And I didn't really, and also being an album oriented artist out the gate, really gave me the ability to dig deeper, to create bodies of work that were more than just the linear context of a single
Mm.
that's just geared towards, the hottest track on the dance floor in that moment, but to think more intuitively about a body of work and a complete album story to make this more substantive.
Of course.
And that definitely spoiled me in a way that I was always diversifying the kind of tracks that I was doing, because I was creating a body of work and not so focused on like what's going to be the hot dance song on a Saturday night at the club.
Mm.
Definitely want to have those, but it needs to be in a broader context of when people are listening to an entire album and drawing them in with more context.
Oh yeah, I was listening to your album the other day and it was so deep. Like I was like, oh, there's so many layers to it. Like I like the layers of your music. It's not like
Which album were you
I
listening
was
to?
listening to the one that I had on. I just want to tell you right now because I had it on my list, and I was listening, and I just told Rashik about it, and I said, man, that album like was so amazing.
We lost him. Is that the Black album? I haven't made that
Right.
one yet.
So while he's trying to find that, I guess one of the songs that sort of resonates with me is "Happy Feeling."
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yes, and could you talk about? I'm assuming you wrote that like during the pandemic and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk about like how that moment of like uncertainty, especially as an artist, when the world was locked down and all that
Mm-hmm.
happened to all of us, how that reshaped your relationship with music in the community?
Oh, the crazy thing about Happy Feeling that'll always make it magical for me is that I was absolutely not happy in the moment that I was writing it.
Wow.
I was completely wounded and tortured, and I was having a terrible breakup with my boyfriend at the time. And I didn't want to write something about that. I wanted to write completely counter to what I was feeling, to basically create a bridge to where I wanted to be as opposed to where I was in that moment. And because I felt so like yucky inside in that moment, all I wished for was a happy feeling, a happy moment again. So that's where I kind of shifted my
Yeah.
focus. Did you figure out the album yet?
I was like, what happened? I was just pressing my phone. Situation critical.
Right? Ah,
Situation-
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
God, that album
yeah.
has layers, my love, layers. It was like,
Yes,
I was like, I
yes.
felt like sad and happy and then elated and enjoyed just all these feelings were like, I was like, I have all these feelings that are coming up.
Feel these feelings, child. And the great thing about Situation Critical is like I wrote probably 60% of that album
Mm.
before I got my new deal. So after I was dropped from Warner Brothers in '94, after
Mm-hmm.
2 albums with them,
Mm-hmm.
um, I had no deal. And I also left my production deal with
Mm-hmm.
Basement Boys here in Baltimore. So I had
Mm-hmm.
no deal, I had no production team, and I was fully independent and had to like rejig my whole business standpoint, my whole creative standpoint. And so I was writing tracks with different people, compiling what I felt was going to be my next album, but actually had no deal in place. But
Mm.
again, it's why not? What's
Right.
the worst that can happen?
That's the worst that can happen.
What's the worst that can happen here? You know?
Mhm.
And then I did the deal with Strictly Rhythm and went into the studio with intention and wrote Free. And then
Mhm.
I was able to put the album together, Situation Critical,
Mhm.
because I had already wrote 60% of the album. So when
Yeah.
Free immediately blew up and became like crazy, and then they needed an album, we were already more than halfway there. So that was the intention set, and then it became fully realized.
Wow.
That
And
is
that's
That's
how
a
you
amazing.
gotta
story.
that's how
That's
you
a
gotta work
story
it.
for an artist to hear. That's a story for an artist to hear that it doesn't have to be so linear the way to an album.
Mm-mm,
It could just have
not at
so
all.
many ins and circles and outs. And I'm writing
Because
music
that's
now, so
life. Because life really is that. Life really,
yeah.
really is that. And so to get back to what Rashik and I was talking about while you were disappearing over there with with Happy Feeling and that album, like it was kind of the same context in that, I was kind of just kind of thrown into this turbulent, um, unstable, kind of unsure environment of what the future was going to hold. It was the exact same kind of moment and energy of, okay, I have to do this for myself because I have no net out here. I'm just out here like a flying Walenda, with no with no
Mhm.
net,
Mhm.
and but I have to create because if I need to create for my own well-being and sanity, then there are other people out there that need whatever messaging is going to come through me as well.
True.
And so that was enough. That was all I needed at that point. You know what I mean? That was inspiration enough. And so writing Happy Feeling in that subsequent Ultra album really became like my anchor in the storm during COVID. And Happy Feeling specifically, like I said, was written to be counter to what I was feeling in that very moment of having the misery of COVID happening. And, you know, because I know so many people around the world, when COVID first hit, I lost a lot of friends everywhere very quickly. And literally, it was like every single week I was getting the word that my friend over here, my friend over there, this one, that one, like people, I was losing people left, right, and center. And it was frightening. And you you didn't even have time to mourn one before the next person was gone. And it was super scary because then you're also like, okay, well, I could be next at any point. And, you know, I had a son and he was in high school and I didn't want him to be afraid also. So I needed to really navigate my emotions in a way that didn't alarm him because he was definitely not used to seeing me being out of pocket. Because that's just not my general state. So, you know, there were a lot of things that I was navigating to help him to make sure he didn't feel panicked. And then, you know, the relationship that I was having, as I was saying, that was going left and being really strange and weird for a myriad of reasons. but that's what life does. It brings you, you know, it socks you with all of it at once. That relationship was already in a tricky place. For years it had been, but it kind of all started coming to a head around that time when all the other shenanigans started going down. Yeah.
That time. A lot of
yeah. So Happy Feeling was, this is what I'm reaching for, is just, you know, this little piece of happiness. But I made it not so specific about myself. I wanted to make it inclusive of what other people were going through. So when you listen to the lyrics more specifically, it's actually talking about, you know, the marginalization of a lot of communities like the LGBTQ plus community specifically. And a lot of the otherism and hate that's going on with a lot of things. It went into a more political place in a way. Because, you know, once you start those journeys of writing songs, sometimes they just take over and take on their own life. And the biggest thing that I had learned a long time ago is to kind of get out of the way of that when it's speaking, when your creative thing is speaking, is for your ego to get out of the way. And just let it speak, let the art speak through you.
Oh, that is amazing. And, you know, what you said just sort of, I had like one of these aha moments of why I'm so drawn to you and your catalog of music and what you represent. And it's this word sawubona, which is an African phrase, which means I see you. In all of the music that I've heard from you, you're definitely, you know, listening to whether it's God, the universe, and putting things out where you're showing people that they are seen. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate
it.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's my community, in that, you know, my career, I soulfully feel the LGBTQ plus community was really an intrinsic part of my career even happening, and me being able to step into a world into an industry in such a way that I had never had any experience with, I had never trained for. But there's that certain level of grit, one, being from Baltimore, and two, being close allies with LGBTQ plus people, is that you are used to having less than and making magic out of fairy dust, out of nothingness. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, when you're building productions in the club, in underground culture, you don't have anything to work with. We don't have pyrotechnics and LED screens and, you know, all the trappings, you know, of major productions like as they do now. You guys, you know, right? Exactly. Okay. You can do a lot with duct tape. You can do a lot with some duct tape. That's a whole other podcast episode.
Baby, let's make a dress.
a dress, a corset, like all the things. I mean, yes. But that teaches you like how to just like cobble some stuff together and make it great and believe in yourself and step out there like I'm the ish. Get into it. You know what I
All
mean?
right.
Half of it is just like believing it yourself, and then you just kind of
Yes.
hypnotize the rest of the people. You know what I'm saying? So I think that having that relationship with my LGBTQ friends in the clubs, in underground culture, and they're walking the balls, and they're doing all the things, and the attitude, and the stick to itiveness, the grind of just, surviving and being in your truth as they had to be, to walk down the street during the day with their heads held high and just be themselves. I think all of that translated very easily when it came time for me to suddenly step on stage, for me to step into the booth or any of that. I think I drew on a lot of that culture. I know I drew on a lot of that culture because that was my training ground. That was all I was doing, was fully absorbed in that world, in that space. And it was easy to translate it into the commercial world because, at the time everybody was open to it because it was new, it was fun. I mean, look at where RuPaul's Drag Race has taken, that culture. You know what I mean? Now that's commercial, that's what the kids were doing, that stuff in the ball scene, like for eons, for eons, but without the fabulous sheen of the production. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that was very pivotal in terms of my training ground to then take that attitude into the future with me.
That's amazing. I mean, I think you definitely have to have that. I mean, who doesn't want to be told your fears? Because my friends, like my girlfriends, are like, take me to the Clay Club because these things tell me their fears all the time. You look fierce. You look fierce. You look fierce. You gotta work. And I'm like, take me there. I think I'm gonna do that after I get out of there. I can do anything.
See? And then you really believe it because it's like, okay, my very first show, my queens were the ones that pulled me together to be on stage for the first time. They made my dress, they did my makeup, they did my hair. My hair was stacked because that was back in the days of the hard hair days. So my hair was like, woo, baby, I was giving you shelf. It was legendary, okay? And I had on a little matchstick sized dress, that my friend Lyle made for me. And some gloves with some fringe he created. I was doing it long before in Vogue.
Okay.
And it was, yeah, there was the look, some kissy little pumps on, and that was it.
Okay.
And
better work.
The rest of it was attitude. It was the rest was attitude.
Thank you for tuning in to part 1 of this very special episode of the I Am Just Game podcast, where we celebrate love, liberation, and living our truth with incredible conversation with the legendary Ultra Naté. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the show wherever you listen and leave us a review. It really helps our community grow. And don't forget, part 2 of our conversation with Ultra Naté drops in just 2 weeks. You don't want to miss it. Until then, keep loving out loud. We'll see you soon. Woo! That's another chapter in our love letter, y'all.
This episode sparked something in you. Share it, tag us, and slide into our DMs.
Because this space only grows when we grow together.
Thank you for listening, for laughing, for loving out loud.
We'll see you next time on I Am Just Gain, a love letter to all of us.